Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, our conversation, really, on Family Peer Support Services. I'm Ann Cuppinger, and I'm with the Community Technical Assistance Center, where I am working on a number of different things, including some work with residential programs and also work to support all the great work that family peer advocates are doing across the state. And I let my co-presenter, Jerry Burton, introduce herself also.
Good morning, everyone. Geraldine Jerry Burton. Again, welcome. And I'm also a part of the Community Technical Assistance Center with McSilver, working with Ann and others on the family support arena of CTAC, and just bringing the family voice to the table when it's needed and when it's necessary.
Terrific. Thanks, Jerry. Before we get started, and we'll do some introductions of who's on the phone, I want to just orient people to the technical aspects of the webinar. So if you've called in, if you're listening on your computer, you can hear us, but you can't actually participate in the conversation. But if you want, you can call in, and the phone call-in information is in the tab labeled Event Info that's just to the left above the elephant. So if you open up that tab, you'll see the call-in number, and it will be easier for you to participate if you do it that way. If you're not able to call in, you can share your comments with us in the chat box, and the way you get to the chat box is if you go over to the right of the elephant, there's a blue bubble, speech bubble, and it says chat. You click on that and it will open up a chat box down below, and you'll see that there's a drop-down menu in that chat box, and you can choose who you communicate with in the chat, and you should choose all attendees, and that will allow you to communicate with all of the participants on the webinar. So again, preferable if you can call by phone, because then you can just talk to us, but if not, that's fine, and we'll monitor that chat so we can see your comments coming in. So what I'd like to do now, all the phone lines are open, by the way, and what that means is that you can, speak, but if you could keep us on mute when you're not talking, and definitely don't put us on hold, because then we are often hearing your organization's hold music. So your lines are open, so mute us, and then when it's your turn to speak, take yourself off mute, and we'll love to hear your comments. So what I want to do first is ask the people who are on the call to introduce themselves, and if you're in a room with multiple people, have everybody in the room introduce themselves. So I'm going to do a little bit of a roll call here because that's the easiest way for people to know when to go, and I think I'll start with Wendy Brennan.
Hi, good morning, Ann.
Good morning. Thanks, Wendy. I just had a lovely call with some of your staff members. I also see that Susan Berger is on the line.
Hi, Ann.
Good morning.
This is Susan Berger. I am I work for Families Together in New York State, and I do family peer advocate credentialing and workforce development, and I'm also a PEP trainer in the New York City region.
Terrific. Thanks, Susan. And I see Nancy Craig's on the line.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, this is Nancy Craig. I, too, work for Families Together in New York State. I am the Director of Statewide Training for Families Together and the Parent Advisor Liaison, and I also am the parents trainer for the state. So I'm looking forward to coming down to New York in a couple weeks.
Terrific. Thanks, Nancy. I have some other people. Looks like I have other people, but I can't see your names. Is there anyone else who's on the call who'd like to introduce themselves?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, hi. This is Mirna Cisneros from ICL Family Resource Center. I'm a family advocate.
Hi, Mirna. Nice to hear your voice again.
Yeah.
Thank you for getting on the phone. Anyone else? All right, well, we'll get started. We have a small but important group right now, and it'll give us a lot of chance to really have some good conversation. I am going to turn the conversation over to Jerry Burton right now. Before I do that, actually, I will say one other thing, which is there are some other staff at CTAC who are really an important part of all of this work. We all kind of work together on all of the initiatives. And some of them are listening. I just want you to know their names, so as you hear them in the future, you know who they are. And that's Caradina Sale, Lydia Franco, Yvette Kelly, and Brianna Gonsalves. And the many other CTAC staff, but some of those folks are listening on the phone right now with us. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Jerry, and we'll go from there.
All right, thank you, Ann. I appreciate that. So as you can see from our agenda, we have a very vibrant agenda, and we did our welcome and introduction. So we are also going to do an overview of CTAC and MCTAC. We're going to talk about challenges and opportunities for family peer support services. We have a series of discussion questions that are very interactive, and we expect you to participate either via phone or through the chat. And then we're going to talk about next steps, and we will have an opportunity for questions and answers. So to get us started, we have a poll question. This is the first of 2 poll questions. And our poll question is, what best describes your employer? So if you could just check off which one best describes your employer, that would be great. This may take a few minutes so for the results to show up. So just please give us an idea of the type of agency you are employed by. New York is very fortunate to have many types of family peer support services, and at CTAC we're excited to support all of this work. And we know that each region has a different makeup of family peer support service programs, with a mix of independent family peer support programs, programs housed within an agency that provides many services. We have embedded advocates working in hospitals, residential treatment facilities, and CRs, clinics, and waiver programs. So let's look at our results. All righty. So thank you, everyone. Okay, one person said family-run, family peer support service provider organization. Someone else, other community organization. And then we have one person that said other organization type. And then 3, no answers. So I would venture to say that folks of their community, other community organizations are involved with Families Together in New York State. Am I correct?
Yes, you are, Jerry.
All righty. And then the other organization type and OMH. So correct? Or is there something different? Okay, all right. So I think we can move on. Again, thank you, everyone. So these are logos of our partners for CTAC and MCTAC, and we are partnering, as you can see, with a number of organizations to provide you with the best consultation and technical assistance. And the staff of MCTAC and CTAC, as well as all of these partners, believe in the importance of the relevance of peer services, including family peer support services. However, our most important partner is none other than you. So just imagine being in a raft going downstream like this. I don't think this is something I would do, and it all feels, with all the changes that are happening, I would think it would feel a lot like this. And the main thing that we need to focus on and remember that we can make it work, and the way we can make it work is by having leadership, doing leadership, teamwork, looking downstream, having a balance, breathing, helpful guides, and hard work. And CTAC and MCTAC look forward to providing you with timely, helpful information to help you navigate your own path to success. So Managed Care Technical Assistance Center, which is MCTAC. And MCTAC is partnering with OASIS and OMH to provide foundational information to prepare providers for managed care support and capacity building for providers. in the form of tools, group consultation, informational training, assessment measures, information and training on the critical domain areas necessary for managed care readiness, and also aggregated feedback providers and state authorities, all of these things. And just remember, the overall goal of preparing and assisting providers with the transition to Medicaid managed care, which is what we're going to be dealing with. So, Community Technical Assistance Center, CTAC. CTAC, along with the Managed Care Technical Assistance Center, MCTAC, will provide technical assistance for all children's mental health programs, including but not limited to RTF, CRs, day treatment, HCBS waivers, clinics, and family support in preparation for the transition in 2017 to the Children's Medicaid Managed Care Redesign Plan. And you will have access to both CTAC and MCTAC offerings, and these two technical assistance centers work very closely together. There will be some offerings that are mainly just for the adult arena. However, there will be some that are only just for children. And when we send out the notices, and please, we want to encourage you to get on board on the listservs, and we will have that information for you. And if they are just specific to adults, it will say that, or vice versa. This year, CTAC will begin offering a variety of trainings in line with the vision of providing the right services at the right time in the right amount. Offerings will focus on managed care readiness and the provision of family-centered, trauma-informed, and community-based services in all sectors from residential programs through to peer support programs. All right, so what can you do to make the most of CTAC and MCTAC supports? And this is our second poll question. If everyone can just put in your answer, and we'll go over that. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. No, that's not. Wait a minute. Is it? I'm sorry. Hold on. This is not the poll question yet. Sorry. Okay. So anyway. All right, this is it's Friday. All right, so again, what can you do to make the most of CTAC and MCTAC supports? This is definitely a group project, and in order to be successful, networking within and outside of the community of family peer support service providers is extremely important for information and ideas. If you are a small provider, involve and possibly expand your board. Network with other small providers in your region. Look for right expertise to complement yours. Your organizations, especially if it does not currently bill Medicaid, will have some important decisions to make about how to develop or partner with others to have the infrastructure needed to bill Medicaid. MCTAC can help you to understand what is needed so you can make the best choices for your agency and the people it serves. So if you are a family peer support service program within a larger provider agency, be smart about how to manage your program and look for opportunities to be at the table as the larger agency is planning for this transition. If you have been operating largely as a satellite, look for ways you can partner and add value to the other services provided by the agency. Okay, so now our poll question. All right. CTAC and MCTAC offer webinars, online tools, resources, in-person events, learning communities, office hours, and trainings. How would you describe your involvement in MCTAC and CTAC offerings so far? So if you could just punch in your answers, that would be great. So CTAC and MCTAC webinars, learning communities, and in-person events are usually open to providers of all types, adult, child, and a wide range of professionals, all working together toward the same goal of improved outcomes for children and families. So when a webinar or workshops are announced, We try to provide you with some guidance as to who the target audience is so you can make a determination about what will be most helpful. Having said that, much of the programming for CTAC and MCTAC cuts across audiences, so take a broad view of what may be relevant. And we encourage you, again, like I said previously, to sign up for the CTAC, MCTAC listservs and think about how the programming can fit into your organization's professional development. Okay, so, oh, interesting. One person said they have participated in 3 or more. 2 said they have participated in many, and 4 no answers. All right, excellent, excellent, excellent. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ann.
Hey, everyone. Thank you, Jerry. That's some great background on CTAC and managed care TAC. And, you know, I think it's important for people to also know that, you know, there's a lot of overlap between those 2 different TACs. And we're really trying to work closely on both the kind of programmatic pieces and the fiscal pieces and the transition to managed care. And we do, you know, this webinar is, you know, just really our first step at reaching out to you to really engage with you around helping to make sure that what we do is most pertinent to the questions that you have and the technical assistance needs that you have as a community of family peer support providers. And we know it's a really diverse community and that you're doing your work in lots of different settings and different program models. But I think, you know, we're at the point in New York where we really do have a kind of common definition of family support, and we see a lot of consistency even as people are doing their work in different venues. And some of that work will change as we move into managed care. But I wanted to, you know, borrow this slide from a presentation that the state does because it articulates some of the goals of the overall Children's Reform Initiative, which includes many things other than the transition to managed care. But it really speaks to how consistent the overall goals are with the work that you do. So really looking to identify needs early and to provide supports for children and families in their homes and in their schools, wherever they live and work and enjoy their lives. To really infuse a trauma-informed and family-driven approach to the work that we do, and to have the goal of our services be to help children thrive in their families and their communities, and to prevent the need for, you know, children to have to leave their homes or, you know, to have, you know, hopefully address their concerns, the family's needs and the child's behavioral health concerns early to, you know, prevent things from falling apart. So what I think is great about this is that I think that everything that you do, and many of the, you know, comments you've made in forums and individually and at meetings over the years have really had, you know, helped the system to shift to thinking in this way. And the work that you do is going to be very helpful not only to families, you know, as you help them try to meet their goals, but also family peer support services are able to help other providers accomplish their goals. And that is part of your value in this new system. And it's important for you to see both pieces of that, you know, the role that you play with families and the role that you play, as I put it, kind of greasing the wheels of the system, helping families, you know, doing outreach, helping families engage with services, helping to break down stigma so that people aren't afraid to speak up, you know, helping providers understand, you know, ways that they might change their approach that are more consistent with how families want to experience care. These are all really important roles that family support can play that just increase your value as we move forward. The, you know, this is a list of some of the new state plan services that the state is seeking approval for from the Center for Medicaid Services. And I just wanted to highlight the fact that people felt that family peer support services should be available. State plan services are available in the broadest sort of way compared to other kinds of service approvals. And because family peer support services are being proposed as a state plan service, that will allow you to engage with families hopefully early on in a preventive way and continue to stay involved with those families if they, you know, need higher levels of care. So I think that's, you know, it speaks to sort of the idea that this is viewed as a very fundamental and important service. I know that there are many, many questions, and we've, accumulated some of those questions on this slide, and I kind of want to walk through some of these so you know what's on our radar, at least in terms of this transition to Medicaid managed care. And I want you, as we go through this, to be thinking of other questions and concerns that you have that you want to add to this list. So lots of conversation about will state aid or 1650 funding be maintained. And I know I'm speaking to a New York City audience here, and the FRCs currently receive a grant from the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to do the work that they're doing. And there are still some outstanding questions about how that money will work when we make this transition to Medicaid managed care. There aren't final decisions yet about that. There's been a lot of discussion. I think the state clearly hears some of your concerns around continuing to be able to serve non-Medicaid eligible families and also to be able to do some of the things that you do that wouldn't necessarily be billable to Medicaid. So we'll keep you posted as we hear more about that. I think it's really important to be thinking about diversifying your funding streams. I think the solution lies in many different partnerships and many different funding streams. So there are questions about what the rates will look like and what the rate structure will look like. You're going to be billing in 15-minute increments or hour-long increments, and what will the rates be? And, you need that in order to be able to start to think about budgets and staffing. What will medical necessity for family peer support services look like? So in a Medicaid environment, you have to demonstrate some kind of need in order to qualify for a service. And because family peer support services looks like it will be a state plan service, that bar, that threshold, will be relatively low. But there will be some sort of requirement. You have to demonstrate some kind of need in order to get the service. So we'll be learning more about that. How will you need to adapt your approach, the way that you work with families, in a managed care environment? Certainly there's going to be a greater focus on outcomes. You'll also have to be getting approvals to do work with families. You may have some time limitations, and there will definitely be some different documentation and reporting requirements. Those are some of the, detail things, but I also think that you will be able to do the work that you do potentially with a broader group of families and in partnership with other providers in new ways. So you also need to know what the qualifications for your staff are for them to provide family peer support services, and we know that the training and credentialing that's currently underway has been proposed to meet the requirements that CMS will have for family peer advocate credentialing. So definitely engage with that and really, stay on top of what those requirements are. But your staff may also be qualified to provide other Medicaid billable services. And this is important because, again, think about any business. You want to have multiple lines of business. And you will have to look at the staff qualifications, but it's very likely, for example, that your staff may be qualified to also provide respite, or your staff may be qualified to even provide some services that are directed to the families of adult consumers of service. So, different family support programs are starting to explore some of these options and think about, not doing everything, but what is it that we would be good at that's also, going to be a role in the new system. And it's also really important to look at who you're partnering with. So all of you or many of you, operate within a larger provider agency. So Myrna, for example, is working within the umbrella of ICL. And there are many different programs in ICL, and probably that Family Resource Center, and Myrna, feel free to speak up if you want, is involved more with some of those programs than with others. But this may present you with an opportunity to grow your program and actually be involved with more of the ICL programs. So you also, the next bullet doesn't necessarily apply to the people who are on the phone, but we have some small family peer support programs that don't operate within larger agencies, and they have to think a lot about the development of the infrastructure that's necessary in order to participate in Medicaid managed care. And there's a whole set of activities that the managed care technical assistance is doing to make those providers aware of the infrastructure that's necessary and help them strategize about what the best course of action is for their program to be able to continue, providing the wonderful services that they provide without being overwhelmed by the infrastructure demands. And then I know that all of you have many questions about the documentation, and I guess at this point what I want you to know is that CTEC will be doing some work to support you to understand how to document services in a way that's acceptable to Medicaid, and that's a little bit down the road. Are there any other questions about these issues or other, things that you want to make sure we have on our radar?
So are you going to be able to share strategies about independent organizations that are too small to bill for Medicaid? What kind of business arrangements are, what kind of templates are out there to have a larger agency, manage that piece of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you think there are, I have been saying two, but I'm starting to think three sort of categories of people in all of this and programs. There are, like the Family Resource Centers, like ICL or Jewish Board or JCCA, St. John's. Those Family Resource Centers operate within agencies that are all geared up to bill Medicaid. And they have a different set of issues. How do they make sure to maximize the availability of family support? How do they give that family support program sufficient autonomy to operate in the way that they need to within the larger agency? How do they coordinate? How do they make sure that family support's linked up with the other programs in their agency, but also able to accept referrals from other people in the community? But those agencies, they have the infrastructure. They know how to bill Medicaid, and they will be, there will be some changes, but that's going to be not a big lift for them. Then you have some other programs that are freestanding programs, and in New York City, one of those programs is, NAMI, and although maybe you already bill Medicaid, but also like Families on the Move would be another example. And programs like that, and there are many more of them upstate, are starting to participate, listen to some of the adult conversation around that small agency, what does it need to do, and we're encouraging them to do that because it kind of gets their brain geared up to thinking about it. And then we'll also, have further conversations with children's provider organizations about all those infrastructure pieces and, what their options are. So their options include to build that capacity, although if they're small enough, that's not really probably very realistic, but they might be able to either merge with another program officially, or they might be able to collectively form, purchase services that kind of create a back office that's shared by multiple small programs. So for that conversation, we're encouraging family support programs that are small programs that don't have a big, Medicaid billable portfolio, I guess, to not just network with one another, but to really network with other small providers in their community, so adult peer services providers and other, small providers that anticipate billing Medicaid but that aren't big enough to lift that on their own. And then, the third category of people are sort of individual people who aren't part of a program but who work within a larger agency, so like a family advocate working for a hospital or a family advocate who's hired by a residential program, and, that's a little bit different because it's not its own program, but, they'll need to be thinking about how this works for them within their agency. Does that help, Wendy?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there are examples existing of, that kind of back office relationship so we could look at that.
Yeah, I think, so there was a workshop yesterday in Syracuse and then a few weeks ago in New York City on home and community-based services infrastructure. And I'll look on the MCTAC website and share a link with you to once that. I don't know if they recorded either of those workshops, but I definitely have a set of slides, and they're kind of walking people through what's necessary for that. In terms of examples, I think it's a really good question. Like, can we ask those consultants to perhaps point us to some examples in other states where that has taken place, and that could be really helpful, I think. Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's definitely worth looking into.
Okay,
thank you.
Something came out this morning that they're going to do one of those in Albany on the 9th. I think it's the 9th. Something came out from the CTAC this morning.
Right. Let me take a look and see. There are a couple different things that look similar. One is the conversation around infrastructure, and that definitely makes sense. CTAC is really working hard to refine the way things are announced so that people know what pertains to them, but it's still tricky, even with all of those labels. So the New York City infrastructure workshop and the one that was in Syracuse were really about, so what would you have to be able to do in order to build Medicaid? I don't know specifically what the 9th one is. It may be there are going to be some workshops coming up around actual adult home and community-based services. Those would not be you know, as relevant to family. I mean, you can go. You can always go. But they're more likely to be specific to the home and community-based services that are for adults. So I will look into that and see, you know, see what that is, Nancy. Thanks. Anything else?
Typically,
all right, I'm going to. Wendy?
For folks that are going to be provider of waiver services for adults.
The one on the 9th. Oh, thanks, Heather.
Yeah.
That was Heather Lane from the Office of Mental Health chiming in, and Heather is the coordinator for Family and Youth Peer Support Services for the Office of Mental Health and a big advocate for everything that you do. Thank you, Heather.
And this is Susan Berger. I just, in the chat box, but I guess it was to the host, I went to the email and just copied the information. So if people, they have the information there, and then, you know, you can send out the link as well. All right.
Excellent. I love having all this help. Thank you. It's really wonderful. You know, and this is really, I really think it's important to round out this conversation, especially for those of you who are leaders. Always be rounding this out with, you know, yes, there's a lot of elements of this that are challenging and difficult, but there are also some real opportunities here. And Family Peer Support Services are a very versatile workforce. You, across the state, and each of you are used to walking into many different settings and adapting what you do to fit the needs of that family and that provider and that setting at that time. And that is going to be incredibly valuable. This is not a future for rigid service providers, but there is a bright future for people who are able to be flexible, you know, within the framework that is going to be set up. So I encourage you to really, you know, try to really continue to look for the opportunities here and think about how what you have to do for managed care is actually going to help you do a better job operating your program. So, for example, those of you in New York City are going to be, you know, some of you have already learned about FANS. Some of you will be doing that in a couple of weeks. The FANS tool is an outcome tool, and it is really a wonderful way to start looking at outcomes. Now, you in New York City have been doing some data collection for a while. Whether or not you're using that data to help you learn about what you're doing, I don't know. But if you aren't, it would really be great to start to think about doing that, because managed care is really going to be taking a much closer look at what you do and whether it has impact and what it costs. So, you know, getting started with something like FANS will give you some data that you can go to a managed care organization with and say, you know, we're measuring what we do, and this is the outcome we have, and this is how we're trying to continue to improve what we do. This is also a really good opportunity for us to take a moment and really look at how to invest in supervisors and leaders to help them help staff move forward. And, you know, you're fortunate in New York City to have some really strong leaders at the FRCs and also the support of NAMI with the Liaison Center and the Learning Collaborative work that NAMI does to really work together to, you know, to do well with these changes. This is an opportunity for you to reach out. We talked about this before, to new partners and new families. You know, there are going to be some issues managing workload and staffing and, you know, the irregular money coming in, but there will be funding for you to serve additional families, and that's a wonderful thing. So I also think that what you have to go through in order to be successful here will make your program stronger financially and programmatically, and that will contribute to your sustainability in the future. And I think, you know, I know all of you think about this all the time, and I just want to note it that it's really important to you and to everyone that Family Peer Support Services maintain its spirit and soul in the middle of all of this. And there's going to be a little navigation that has to happen for that to happen, but I think that's everybody recognizes how important that is. You know, if you just become another service, then, you know, we'll have really lost something. And so the trick is to try to keep that spirit alive while we deal with the technicalities. So this is just a slide that we threw in so that you can kind of look at where you are in your own reaction to all of these changes. And I think as leaders, it's important for you to kind of monitor how your staff are doing, because this can be pretty overwhelming. And your job will be to kind of keep them focused on what they need to be doing right now and learn about the big picture but not be overwhelmed by it. And CTAC is hoping to help you with that to stave off disillusionment. So, you know, I would love to hear from people who are on the phone. The next few slides are really, you know, dependent on your participation and conversation. And we have a small group, but I hope that you'll share with us. And some of you have, you know, perspective across multiple programs. So I'd love to hear from you about what you think that you're doing, that really is something that you think is really good, that you're proud of, that might be unique, that you, maybe something recently, a change you made recently and you thought, wow, that really has changed what we're doing and it's really helped us do a good job with that. So the phone lines are open and feel free to contribute.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, hi, Smyrna. Well, what ICL FRC, I feel like what we're doing well is educational services, as the parenting classes, you know, the support groups.
That's great.
As well, working individually with so many parents in needs.
Mm-hmm. Myrna, what kind of support group, do you operate different sort of support groups with different focus, or how does that work?
Yes, actually this year we had many topics. We have agencies coming to the support groups meetings from immigration, how to educate family what services are available, how to get services if they qualify. We have ACS came to our side. We had workers from housing. We, besides educational workshops, we also have all about diagnosis, ADHD, bipolar. We review the IP that parents can learn how to read their children's IP.
That's great.
We also provide recreational services. We take parents for a trip, for a movie trip, and we had a professional worker came from another side giving yoga classes. You know, parents to, as part of how to help the parents to relieve their stress.
Yeah.
Those things like that. It's all the services has been provided according to what the parents request. from the very beginning.
So the parent support group meets and they decide what they'd like more information on.
Actually, the support group, so we opened it in September, and we had our closing ceremony in the end of June. So in September, we asked parents what kind of services or what do you want happen in their support groups. So they bring it about the concern or the question, we would like to have this and this, so we start reaching out agencies if we don't provide those services, and we schedule all the workshops or any other services that they have been requesting.
Do you have some families who are participating in the support group who don't get individual services? So like they might not need individual services anymore, but they still come to the support group?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a nice thing for them to be able to stay involved?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because even the parents, we can say their children are already stable, they are receiving their services. However, as a parent, we have children with different challenges. We're still going through many things in the house. You know, it's always we confront challenge with them. Yeah. So we as a parent, we always need some kind of you know, sharing, meeting other parents, or have some recreation, things like that. Yeah. You know, something that you brought up is really a new topic. You know, it's obviously an issue in New York City with immigration, but it's becoming an increasing issue upstate. So some of your knowledge about how to work with immigrant families could be something really helpful for us to share with other advocates in other parts of the state who aren't as well versed in that as you are. Yeah, absolutely.
So can I follow up on that immigrant issue that you just raised? So many of the immigrants that we work with are not documented. They're not documented. They're not eligible for Medicaid. And there is a project in DSRIP that would provide, you know, reimbursement for working with undocumented immigrants, but it's very difficult for family support organizations to get traction in these larger hospital-driven networks. Do you have ideas about what we can do because we do have services that would be of use to them, but it's been very difficult for us to really engage. So DSRIP, for those of you who may not know, is an acronym for an effort to allow hospitals to receive a significant amount of money to implement a plan that is designed to to provide more community-based services and engage community partners, but with the goal of reducing hospitalization and emergency room presentations and a few other goals. And it has primarily, as Wendy said, focused on adults, and it's been a little tricky for children's providers and even sometimes other adult providers to really get involved in these DSRIP networks. So I think it's we do have a couple of programs upstate that are part of, they have children's projects within their DSRIP, and actually in New York City you have a couple of children's projects in some of the districts that I've heard about. It's not something I know a lot about. But I think it's a good question to put to some of the nice thing about CTAC and MCTAC is there are a lot of people who know about a lot of things that I don't know about. And I think that it would be a really good question, especially around this issue of the undocumented in New York City, around how to connect family support through DSRIP for families who are undocumented. It's a really nice specific request, which I think could be something that we talk to people about how that might be, how we might move forward on that. What I've heard, the general advice that I've heard around children's programs and DSRIP is to try to really become a part of that network, even if you don't get any money, so that you're kind of on their radar, that they know you're there, keep reminding them that you're there, so that
you know, if the family, you know, they're working with an adult and that adult has a child and, you know, they know where family support is, you know, even at this point, if it doesn't involve additional funding, that it's an important outreach strategy to have you be known to that network, because those networks are going to translate into Medicaid managed care. So I will look into this specific question around New York City DSRIP and undocumented folks, but also the general question around kids services and traction and DSRIP, and see what we can get back to you on that. Yeah.
So I have a question for ICL. I know in the past you've done grandparent support groups. Just wondering, are you still doing that?
Yes, we had the grandparent support groups every Wednesday from 11 to 2, but all the groups are closing on the 26th because it's all groups ending in June, period. We're starting the summer recreational program in July, and basically August, everybody goes for almost everybody goes for vacation, and it's the time of what we do here in FRC, other activities. But we reopen all the groups in the beginning of September.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and you know, Myrna and you know, Wendy, as somebody who's looking at these programs across the board, I think it's going to be important to tease out, like to look at all of the valuable activities that a program like ICL's Family Resource Center is conducting, and you know, try to determine which of these activities will be billable to Medicaid, which ones are, you know, do we hope to maintain, you know, ongoing kind of grant support to be able to do, you know, what percentage of our families are Medicaid eligible and who are not, and to begin to, you know, just sort of understand that now so that as we move forward, you can be problem solving around how to make sure that you can keep doing the good things that you're doing, or you know, perhaps add new things and, you know, adjust those things as the financing changes. So, okay, I'm going to move us on to the next slide, and this is a question around the training needs of the family advocates. So people in New York City go through a lot of different kinds of training. You really are fortunate you have access to many different trainings as family advocates and the ongoing work of the Liaison Center. But as you look at advocates as a group, what kinds of training needs do they have that we're not meeting right now? What can we do are there particular topics, competencies, gaps that you see, things they're struggling with, things you're struggling with as their supervisor that we could do a better job with?
Hello, this is Myrna.
Hi, Myrna.
Here in ICL FRC, we don't do housing. However, in somewhat, we still get involved in the families when they have housing issues, so being there in the shelter, and programs available, so how programs work, you know. Also how to assist the parents on navigating the system, how to move from, you know, getting a transfer for whatever issues. Or right now is even parents who has Section 8 or any other program, still they are struggling how to get a transfer to a new apartment for whatever that issue is. Also is about immigration.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you know, it's interesting because it's something like housing, I bet, can take up a lot of your time. You know, if an advocate's working with a family and they have unstable housing, am I right that that can be very time-consuming?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and it's interesting because, you know, the housing, it's almost like we need to do some advocacy, you know, in New York City with the housing people around, you know, their own ability to help people navigate through those systems, you know, so that you guys don't get completely sucked into that. You know, it's tricky. Yeah, but you know, it's hard to work with a family if housing is a concern. They really can't pay attention to anything else, you know, that you would do with them. So, okay. Any other ideas on this?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this with our family advisory board, that we need to do more regular, I don't know if it's even check-ins, some additional training around trauma issues that providers of these services that deal with, and then training around domestic violence issues, not only for the families that we serve, but just to get more up to speed on what you recommend families in that situation.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing where we can partner with, you know, somebody who's an expert in domestic violence, and we bring the expertise in family support, and they bring the expertise in domestic violence, and we figure out what's relevant information for family advocates, And, you know, some of that can be delivered statewide, and then there's like a piece that's more specific to the locale that you're operating in because, you know, obviously the resources are different in New York City. Can you say a little bit more about the trauma issues of providers? Are you talking about the FRC staff and their own trauma history, or tell me more about what you meant there?
I am talking about both staff that have been, you know, their children have been through trauma, they have been through trauma. This is a typical sort of family support issue about, you know, being re-traumatized by listening to other people's stories, but then really addressing trauma issues in families that you serve. You know, we talk about trauma-informed care all the time now. It's the kind of buzzword for all mental health services, and I don't really feel that we're appropriately equipped to deal with that.
Yeah, okay. That's you know, we spent a good amount of time yesterday talking about you know, initiatives around trauma-informed care, you know, and trying to make it, you know, both, you know, not just stop at the conceptual level, but what are some real strategies that we can equip people with. And we also talked about, you know, that staff experience of trauma is, you know, obviously with family peer advocates, it's, you know, it's very pertinent, but it is pertinent with lots of staff in many kinds of programs. I mean, at least family support recognizes it, you know, and you can talk about it. You can come to work, and it's okay to talk about, you know, things that have been challenging in your family, whereas if you work in a non-peer setting, you know, in addition to having that trauma, it's sometimes difficult to raise that issue with your supervisor. And so, you know, and you see the impact of that in the work that people are doing. That's great. Any other things? Okay. You know, these are open questions, so as things come to you, you know, feel free to bring them up. How about supervisors? We hear from some quarters that supervisors haven't necessarily been trained in how to be supervisors. And I know there was a training, maybe it's this month, that Families on the Move is doing on supervision. I don't know if folks are engaged in that, but I'm curious to know what you see in terms of how supervisors are operating and what kind of support we might be able to provide to help them in that role. You guys are fortunate in that you have senior family advocates supervising, and you have clinical consultants. I think that's a lovely arrangement. I don't know, you know, how it works exactly in all of your programs, but theoretically at least, that's a nice configuration.
So I just want to say that, you know, supervising people is very difficult, and I don't think people have the skills to do that. Also, as you know, you are moving into a new environment that's going to require more structure and more accountability. You're going to want to elevate some of your existing family advocate staff to higher positions, and they're really unprepared for that supervisory experience, at least some of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as we move to managed care, I mean, we're thinking about all the sort of billing and this and, you know, documentation and kind of services you offer, but that, you know, management infrastructure piece is really not being addressed. Certainly, you know, it's an issue for us an issue for other organizations.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
This is Susan Berger. I'd like to add to that because I think, well, I'm not really from the city, although I train in the city, so I listen to some of the advocates that come in that are newly trained in PEP, some new, and some with a little more experience, and then also there's supervisors. Many of them have PEP. And there's the administration of supervision, and then there's also kind of the coaching and modeling part of supervision. And I, just from my experience as a supervisor on Long Island, I think more information and maybe, you know, webinars or sort of training on looking at that modeling role of a little more carefully.
Okay. Thank you. Great. I think, you know, I think what you're all saying is true. You know, people will end up being a supervisor because they're good people, they've done good work with families, and they've been around for a while, but they haven't necessarily received training in how to do supervision, and there are some new demands, you know, coming up. And one of the trickiest ones is going to be helping people decide how to use a limited allocation of time. So there's going to be time limits on some of these services, and, you know, how to prioritize what you do is going to be, that's some of the hardest kind of supervision work. Thanks. You know, Myrna talked a little bit about some work that they're doing with parents around education and, you know, needs that the parents identify for information. There's also a lot of family support programs work with parents around their, you know, how the parents how well the parents feel able to manage things at home and help their child with their child's behavior and support their, you know, child to do well. So we know that some people are implementing various parenting programs, you know, something like Common Sense Parenting or Incredible Years, these sort of evidence-based parenting models. Some of you are doing them in kind of a group format, and some are doing them more individually, and some of you are mixing and matching pieces from different models. Can you share a little bit about what kinds of models you see being used in New York City, and if there are any thoughts you have about whether you could use some additional support in receiving training in other models?
We do some hands-on teaching with the parents, modeling with the children, and somewhat supporting directly to the parent, the children, managing their behavior. But as well, we provide services combined with other services as a CSPOA, waiver, or base home program services. So we refer families for additional services that the families can come, workers can do home visit and teach parents some additional skills. And
so you're doing some, and the waiver ICC is doing some of that work.
Yes, and we keep directly contact, attending meetings together to reinforce what has to be done, and you know, to see any progress, or we need to reinforce the services.
And so, are there particular like programs or strategies that you're using? Is it more like, let's look at this particular family and see what would be helpful for them? It's more individualized.
It's more individualized because it depends on what services the parents needs. You know, it depends the level of the skills they have. It's not for everybody.
Right.
So we provide, you know, a NAMI signature course for parents. We think that it's important that parents of kids with behavioral or emotional issues or a diagnosis, you know, get the information about mental health, learn about record keeping, learn some basic communication skills to improve difficult communications with their kids. But what concerns me just sort of policy-wise is that a parenting class can't be a substitute, in my estimation, for a class that's really targeted to parents dealing with kids with behavioral health issues.
Yeah. We've heard that from many parents, like the generic parenting class, some of which may be mandated, and so they're not necessarily strength-based. Oftentimes, look like a joke to parents whose kids have serious behavior issues because it's more like, the sticker chart on the fridge, and that's not where they're at, right? I think that's what you're getting at. It has to really look at how parenting, for, in the context of really challenging behaviors.
Also, the stigma issue is so pervasive that, parents should be, and caregivers should be in a group where they can get beyond that because everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah. Wendy, have you been involved in any of the 4 R's and 2 S's groups in the city? That's the multiple family group training?
No, but I'm very interested.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's definitely something that CTEC is equipped to, and there's about to be a big initiative in New York City, so you'll have an opportunity to do that. What's nice about that is it's developed specifically for families in a group way to work together around, those issues around communication and, family, stuff with kids who have, quote unquote, disruptive behavior disorders. And what's nice is that the parents are really learning from each other and, finding out that it's not, it helps with the isolation problem because, they're not the only ones. And the kids can hear other parents talk to their kids, and there seems to be something about that group process that's very helpful.
I had and I have family who have children with, this severe behavior. As I said, all the services have to be collaborative. Besides providing the parenting classes and support groups, we assist the parents getting the right services the child need in the school, or try to find the right placement, or if the child need a different a private school for manage their behavior, or all its services come together to assist the families because the parents doesn't need only parenting classes or support groups or one-to-one. It has to be put in place all the services that they need.
Like a real coordinated plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's, for me, I find it that it's a better way that the parent can, have some release and be more stable.
Right. Everybody's on the same page. Yeah. Is that, so it sounds from what you said before that you're doing some work with waiver, families who are enrolled in waiver. And is that coordination happening between you and the waiver care coordinator and the rest of the team sometimes?
Sometimes, most of the time, but we have to, it's consistent tracking, making phone calls, setting meetings, calling parents, follow-up. It's all about follow-up. Right.
It'll be interesting to see how that, when health homes are implemented, and health homes really are care coordination for kids with a high level of need. It'll be interesting to really think through, Myrna, how family, what that care coordination looks like and how to make sure all those people that are providing services, including family support, are coordinating. Because I think you're right. It's really, it's only partly about the parenting skills, right? That's helpful, but that's not really all of it, is what you're saying.
It's helpful, but it's not all about it. No, that's not going to happen because we don't have the child in the house all the time, and the house is not only one child. Sometimes it's 3, 4 kids, and sometimes 4 kids, and they have their own diagnosis themselves, and plus the parents as well. So it's getting help from every place the child has to be.
Yeah. This is a little off topic, but I want to follow up with a question, which is, you know, your goal is to help families be able to do these things on their own, you know, and that looks different for each family. But what do you find is really the key to doing that? Like, what do you, because you're an experienced family advocate, and, you know, what do you think is, there may be multiple things. What really helps, what do you do that really helps the family feel like, okay, you know, I can start to manage some of this myself?
The question is for me?
Yeah, well, it's for anybody, but I was thinking about it because of what you were saying, you know. How do you let go? How do you let go?
Well, I learned that it's easier for me for having so many trainings. The parent has to set their own goals, not my goals. Have to be parents their own goals, and to coordinate where we're going to start and who's going to do who, and let the parent, okay, we're going to do this, but I want you to do it. Let me know if you need help. I will support you, but I want you to do it because this is your child, and I'm not going to be available to be there all the time for you, so I want you to do it. And whatever struggling, you know, we're going to work together and things like that. So I let the parents to do it, and if the parent doesn't follow up, I keep checking on the parent, what happened, you know, I was waiting for you to let me know when the meeting's going to be. And so the parent has some excuses, oh, I forgot, oh, I couldn't do it, this has happened. So can you try it again? Call, make the appointment, and let me know. So I give the time, I give the parent a time to think about it, or if he really, really wants to do the first step, you know, because I don't want to enable the parents and let the parent know that I would do everything for them.
Yeah, that is such a great description of empowerment that you just gave. I just want to say that, you know, that's just so, you can say the word empowerment, but people don't know what you mean. What you just described is exactly that, you know, like they're in the driver's seat, you're there to help, you know, you're kind of keeping track, you know, but it was great. Thanks.
I would add that this is part of the process of, experience. Being here in the field is not easy. When you just start being a parent advocate and you think you have to do everything for the parent, this is something that I have to learn on my own, because if you do everything for the parents and you put it easy, using this word that you make it easy for the parents don't show up for the meetings, parents get upset if you make any decision for them. You know, it's part of the process of learning, and this we have to learn as an advocate that this is their child, and this has to be done for you. Yeah, right. Well, you know, people talk a little bit about the expectation that you create in that first meeting, and what you said very clearly is, you know, this is you. I'm here to help, you know, and I think that's, an important, but thank you for sharing that. All right. Contact with managed care organizations. I think what I want to say here is, we know that, it's sometimes a little scary to reach out to these managed care organizations. You know, obviously, Myrna, you're not going to do that apart from ICL. ICL is doing that. And I think for you to be connected with that conversation at ICL is important, so that, because sometimes the senior people don't know how to describe family support, right? They try, but they don't necessarily know. So you may be able to help them understand what you do. Any communications people have had with managed care?
Yeah, I mean, we've communicated with managed care companies, and just anybody who is, like, concerned about it, to me, I mean, they shouldn't be, especially about making the connection, because I found that they actually can see that family support is in their interest more than other stakeholders, like hospitals or community-based organizations. So I've been pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I would second that thought. Yeah, What we've been asked to do by some people is to help, develop some guidance to both understand managed care and to kind of understand the way that managed care organizations kind of view the world and what their priorities are. But I would agree that, this may be a nice, with the right kind of communication and the right relationship and you guys doing what you do well, I think there's some real opportunities there. So CTAC will be CTAC is meeting now with managed care organizations around a lot of different aspects of the kids services. We'll probably do some kind of, forum with them around family peer support services so that they understand what that looks like in New York. There has been for adults and there will be for kids some managed care fairs where providers can go and meet with managed care organizations. But I think it's really important for your individual organizations to be just reaching out, meeting, letting people know that you're there and what you do. CTAC can help provide some guidance for, how to do that. I'm going to skip this question because we're a little short on time. We already talked about it, which is that, you're going to be needing to look for potentially additional sources of referrals and new partnerships, both to make sure that you really reach families and that other providers know about you so they can connect families to you, but also as potential other revenue streams for you other than Medicaid, because it's not a good idea to have your entire operation funded by a single funding stream. So, this question really is, you as a program leader, what are the big things that you could use some help with in the next 6 to 12 months as you think about all of these changes that need to take place? What would your top priorities be?
Well, for us, it's helping us to set up the infrastructure and think through what kind of infrastructure we would need. I think small organizations, we may vaguely know that we have IT requirements, but we're not even sure what those might be, what the parameters are, where to start looking for good people to talk to about this, because what's second nature for a larger agency that can do some of these things already or has these pieces in place, organizations, smaller ones, don't know what the issues are and sometimes how to find out information about them.
Okay. So we'll, I'm going to connect you up with some of those. It sounds like you were not able to participate in that infrastructure forum in New York City, but there's going to be some follow-up activities that, I'll get you those slides and also get you, I'll let you know what's going to be happening. It's not started yet. So take a look at this will move us on to some other things about CTAC here. We've really talked about all of this, the different ways that CTAC can help you. And, you'll get these slides in a couple days. They'll come through to you through the website. And I'm going to have Jerry talk about some of the activities that are coming up in the near future. Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, so upcoming, we have a Children's Summit that's going to be Monday, June 29th, and it's going to be in New York City. And then there's another one, the same one, along the same lines, is going to be held June 30th, Tuesday in Albany. And Ann is going to talk about that in a few minutes. And then we have a series of managed care readiness, which entails readiness assessments, HCBC provider infrastructure training. Then there's the revenue cycle management and utilization management training, contracting series, and then we have
Irene.
MCTAC and CTAC work with
so
meaning
you had a big question.
And then we also have, coming up in the summer, there'll be a series of webinars that are family peer support service focused. We'll have some other summer webinars that will be residential focused. In the fall, we are going to have some regional leadership events. There will be learning collaborative opportunities and family peer advocate advisory group that we're going to be having as well, and you will be informed. So this is one of my favorite slides, you know, and all the drama that's going on and all the transitioning that we have to deal with. We want you to try and stay calm, keep calm and be open-minded, stay positive, and also know that CTAC is here to assist and support you in this transitioning journey. We know that it's going to be very trying at times. However, we can do this together, so please don't hesitate to contact us with any comments, questions, or concerns that you may have. Ann?
Yeah. Before we talk about the summit, if anybody else is on the phone or on the webinar, but we haven't, you know, you're not able to participate by phone, will you just chat your name and where you're from into the chat box just so we know who we've been talking to today, because that'll be helpful as we do some follow-up. Because I see some more phone lines active than people that we are hearing from, which is fine. I just want to make sure we know, you know, who's gotten this information and who hasn't. So Jerry talked about the summit coming up in New York City. That's Monday, June 29th. You're welcome to come to Albany instead, but we're thinking it might be more convenient for you to go to New York City. It's a great day, great program. Susan Dreyfus from the National Alliance is coming in, and she's bringing some providers from other states who are going to talk about, you know, their experience in, you know, kind of a new approach to service delivery for kids. Lots of workshops after that, many of which will be of interest to family support providers. And it's just going to be a full day, and I think a good day for us to stop and think about, you know, where we want this system to go. So it's not too late to register, but in order to register, there's, you know, kind of a prerequisite, and that is that you complete the Managed Care Readiness Assessment Tool and the Children's Addendum, which is a part 2 of the Readiness Assessment Tool. Those can be found through a link on the MCTAC website. And you'll eventually get these slides. You can use this link, but if you go onto the MCTAC website, you'll also be able to find it. If you, you know, encounter any difficulties, you can let us know. And there is a webinar on the MCTAC website that kind of goes through, you know, the readiness assessment tool, if that would be helpful to you. But you need to do that, complete that, and submit it first, and then you will be sent a link to register for the summit. Each agency is able to bring 4 people. You know, that you register kind of as one agency. So once you get that link, you can like list the 4 people that you're going to bring to the summit. Any questions at all related to the summit or anything else that we've talked about today? Okay. I want to really thank Myrna and Wendy for your great participation, and I hope if anybody else is listening that they also gain some helpful information, but I especially want to, you know, give a shout out to people who were brave and spoke. These are the websites for CTAC and the Managed Care TAC, and there are listservs associated with each of these websites that you should sign up for. They're different, so make sure you sign up for both of them. And I also would really encourage you to kind of, you know, take a little time to peruse the websites. We're actually in the process of developing a new website, but there's a lot of information there, and many of the webinars and even some of the in-person meetings have been recorded. So, you know, it's Friday night. You can, you know, queue up a couple MCTAC webinars and get a bowl of popcorn, and I can't imagine a better way to spend the evening. But it's all there. And we have, actually, we've had 5 listening sessions, and New York City is our last, but definitely not least. And we really thank you for your participation. And here is the contact information for Jerry and myself. And we do encourage you to be in touch and let us know what your questions are, and look forward to some good work coming up with all of you. So thank you very much.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.